One of the ways that the American government was able to encourage the settlement of the West was by passing the Homestead Act in 1862. This law is going to not only encourage settlement of the Plains area, but it's going to give 160 acres of land to any settler as long as they improved the land and lived on it for roughly 5 years. That means they had to farm it. And again, all they had to do to get this land was to pay a very small filing fee. So this was a tremendous opportunity for anyone who wanted to be able to move west and start their life over again. You did see land speculators. These are going to be people who tried to get this land and then turn around and sell it for a profit. That did happen with some of that land that the government was giving away. One of the most well known is an area called the Oklahoma Giveaway, which was going to be in 1889. The way this worked is the government set a specific date and time of when this giveaway was going to happen. There was what we call a land rush, where you had a lot of people trying to go and get the best piece of land and claim it for themselves. Some people snuck out to the prearranged areas of land and claimed some sooner than they were supposed to. This is how Oklahoma gets the nickname of the Sooner State. People are going to continue to move west for that very cheap land and opportunity, like these settlers you see here. And here is a picture from that Oklahoma giveaway and that land rush in 1889. In order to be able to move west, there had to be a lot of new technology which would allow these farmers to work the land with so few people. You had to have deeper wells, which was a way for them to be able to reach water for themselves and for their farms. Steel plows were going to be very important that would break up that very rocky soil. Much better farm equipment was needed, reapers and harvesters, which would make it faster to work that land again since there were so few people living in the area. The government was also going to encourage agricultural colleges through land grants. These are going to create agricultural colleges throughout the country. NC State University actually began as an agricultural college. This is going to teach farmers how to be better at their trade. Railroad expansion was also going to be key for people and farmers to move west. Not only did it make it easier for people to get to the west, it made it much easier for farmers to ship their harvest to the east where it was sold. The development of that transcontinental railroad with a meeting point at Premonitory Point, Utah in 1869 is going to be very instrumental in completely connecting the United States east and west coast. All of this made it much faster to transport those goods. However, life on the farm was very difficult. First of all, these farmers had to find a way to build a house. If you think about the plains area, one thing that you see a lot of is grass, but you see almost no trees. So these farmers had to make up for that lack of trees. So what they did was they built their house into the side of hills and used sod or grass as the roof. There's a great example of a sod house or a soddy in this top right picture here. Farmers made do. These houses were very good for the plains because one, they kept it cool in the summertime and warm in the wintertime. If you think about it, kind of like a basement in your house, it's very similar. However, could also be very dirty. Anytime it would rain, these sod roofs would leak, make a huge mess. Bugs and other animals like to live in these sod roofs. And you even see in this picture on the right, there's a cow standing right on top of their house. So you can imagine the mess made there. This was very difficult work. There were weather extremes because there were no large bodies of water. There were no Atlantic or Pacific oceans nearby. You're going to have extremely hot summers and extremely cold winters. This is going to make it difficult for their farmers. Anytime a drought hit, that would also cause another major problem because it caused their crops to fail and their harvest to fail. And that is how farmers made money. These crops and their harvest are how farmers were able to make it from year to year. Isolation was another major issue. Remember, the closest neighbor is going to be at least 160 acres away. This means the only time you see anyone other than your immediate family is going to be if you had like a big barbecue or a cookout, or if someone needed help. So this isolation caused a major problem for many of these farmers. You see here on the right, guys, women, while we often thought of women, especially on the East Coast, who were relegated to the home, women on farms did not have that luxury. They had to not only keep up with their housework, but also had to work on the farms as well. You see this homesteader woman here on the right bottom picture. She is actually going and loading up cow patties to use as fuel. Farming was so difficult that we eventually do see a decline in the trade. One, the rise of industry, meaning factories. It was much easier to work in a factory than it was on a farm. There are no days off of work if you work on a farm. Your animals have to be fed, your crops have to be tended to day in and day out all year long. Urbanization, or the growth of cities, is going to cause these cities to continue to grow, which are going to eat into those crops, the areas that crops could be grown. The end of the frontier. In 1890, the U.S. government announced that there was no more free land to be given away to anyone. And if you think of the frontier as that edge of civilization, we're going to see that many people argued that this was going to completely change American character, specifically a man named Frederick Jackson Turner. He argued that one of the things that had made America great in his frontier thesis was that we had lots of opportunity in the West. Anytime we got restless or just wanted to start over, we could simply pack up and move westward. That would no longer be available to Americans, and he argued that this would completely change American character. Farmers, unfortunately, were also in a tremendous amount of debt. Land is very expensive, as well as farm equipment was very expensive. And unfortunately, if farmers had a bad year and their crops didn't do very well, or if if their crops completely failed, or if the market fell for whatever reason, it turned into a serious cycle of debt. In order to make more money, farmers had to grow more crops. In order to grow more crops, farmers had to buy more land, which put them deeper into debt, which is going to again lead to the same problem the next time their crops failed. So you see the farmers were in a lot of debt and had a very hard time getting out of that debt. Railroads were also totally taking advantage of farmers. Railroads knew that farmers completely depended on them to transport those goods to the East Coast. So they charged them very high rates and unfair rates because they knew they could, because they knew that farmers totally depended on them. All of these will eventually lead to a major decline in farming. Whereas that great opportunity was there, right in there in 1862, now all of that opportunity, due to the very difficult nature of farming, we see many farmers leaving and going into different trades.